My name is Ray Jonkers. I'm excited to be extending a course in systems engineering and complex project management online. A course that's been taught to industry in the past 3 years and was well received. I'm also intrigued by the different perspectives on systems engineering, on what systems engineering is. And so I have the opportunity and the pleasure to interview some colleagues that are involved with systems engineering. And what we want to talk about is primarily two questions. And the first question will be describing your past work experience with respect to systems engineering and your view on systems engineering. And then the second question will be oriented towards the need for systems engineering training, formal systems engineering. So I have the pleasure to have this first interview with Patrick Sweet, and I'll let Patrick Sweet introduce himself and perhaps just to respond to those two questions if possible. So welcome, Patrick. I look forward to your response.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it, and very happy to be here. This is great. I always love talking about systems engineering. It's a field that a lot of people don't know a whole lot about. I'm sure you've had the experience, oh, you're an engineer, what discipline are you? And then stunned silence when you say I'm a systems engineer. It's right. Something that within that world, people recognize just how important it is. And I think it's more and more becoming recognized just how valuable it is. But before I get into that, my background is in a combination of the rail industry and in shipbuilding. I started out my career as an electrical engineer with Bombardier, which at the time was the world's largest rolling stock manufacturer. No one made more trains than Bombardier. And that role migrated over time, as it often does for people in this world, into overseeing progressively larger and larger parts of the train, and then integrating those parts of the train, and eventually migrating into full-on systems engineering, and eventually becoming chief engineer within that site. I took those skills and moved them into shipbuilding later in my career here in Halifax, where, despite being a fundamentally different product doing different things, the same skills apply. And it's been really pretty remarkable to get to see, again, totally different technology doing totally different things, yet still seeing some of the same challenges in making complex technical systems do what they're supposed to do, and not just technical systems, but people systems as well. And I think systems engineering is a really important field when it comes to integrating all of that.
Great response. Any particular challenges that you can remember from your past experiences and working in different companies, perhaps, or different projects that come to mind?
Yeah. So I think maybe my very first exposure to systems engineering is a good example of this. My first job at Bombardier was to get a train that wouldn't move to start moving. This is a prototype train that had been developed through the R&D department to experiment with a number of different new technologies, new subsystems, which is great. It was really exciting stuff. There was some really fascinating work that was being done. The problem is this had become a bit of a Frankentrain, where the brakes didn't really talk to the train control system, and the train control system was having a hard time listening to what the doors were saying, and the lights wouldn't work. And this is what happens in practice when large systems are not fully thought through before anyone puts pen to paper. And this is what systems engineering does. It says, okay, before electrical engineers, before you go size any wires, and structural engineers, before you choose steel, let's all get together and make sense of what is it we're even trying to do here in the first place. So when you first go to design a train, you're not talking about how many seats are on the train or what kind of control system the driver or the conductor might want. You're talking about, okay, how many people per direction per hour are we even talking about moving? What's the mission here? So you really need to step back and have someone with the skills to be able to oversee something like that, and normally not just a person, but a team of people, because systems engineering typically deals with the big, complex, fun stuff that as kids we dreamed that engineers actually go do. So it's wonderful. So yeah, that was a really interesting experience to be thrust into this Frankentrain, as I said, and
Okay.
start to try to integrate it on the fly, which you'll learn an awful lot from seeing a system like that.
Okay, great perspective, all encompassing, high level kind of big picture perspective on what systems engineering is. And so very impressed with your background, and I appreciate your input for that first question. Second question is relatively new to Canada is this whole thing surrounding uh, physical systems engineering. Which you'd probably see more so in the perhaps in North America, in the States, or overseas, where they're dealing with the space industry or the aircraft industry, automotive industry, where physical systems engineering is more prominent. And then with that, you mentioned complexity, and so we know there's complexity in both the system and in project management. So what we've seen in the past 3 years is work with industry and giving the current course on systems engineering and complex project management is that it's needed, especially here in Canada, and 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 the formal training to a wide or to a broad spectrum of positions within companies, from junior engineers to director and above levels, is important. And so, just if I could get your perspective on that, on the need for formal training here on those two things, systems engineering and complex project management. Over to you, Patrick.
So my experience in this world is that you said it yourself. You're managing complexity. The
Yeah.
systems that we're talking about are busy. There's a lot going on, and it can be incredibly difficult to wrap your head around um, everything that needs to be thought through, let alone trying to do that with others. So, from my perspective, it's important to get formal training in systems engineering methodology for two fundamental reasons. One is it provides you with a mental model. What I mean by that is it gives you something to kind of hang your hat on with respect to envisioning how a systems engineering project goes from start to finish, so that you can plan, you can think, you can make sense of all of the things that you need to think through and how you might iterate through those things. And that's part of the challenge here, is that these projects are not linear. You don't go from A to B to C and then you're done. You iterate. You're going in spirals, and then you're going deeper into the details, and then jumping back out again. So having a mental model is important. Um, Equally important is that you learn the language of systems engineering. And why that's important is that you may have a model in your mind. You need to make sure that your model aligns with the person next to you. Systems engineering is a team sport, and not only within your own organization, but with suppliers and customers as well. And if you can't get your head around how to describe basic concepts, a common example is the difference between validation and verification. In regular old English, those basically mean the same thing. In systems engineering, they don't. It's a distinction that makes a difference.
Okay.
So having that language and having that common ground then sets the scene for people to be able to discuss the meaty technical ideas that you really need to in order to get things done.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Thanks very much for that, Patrick. I appreciate your input to both those questions. So, and again, thanks for the interview. Any parting comments?
Oh, just that I'm really excited about this program that you're running. I think there's a real need for it in
Right.
Canada and the East Coast, where shipbuilding in particular is taking off, and not just that. There's a budding space industry here that is just getting off the ground that would benefit from this too. That there's a lot to be excited about.
Good points. Good points. Thanks again. Thanks very much, Patrick.
You're most welcome.